Portrait of a Killer. Pictures Jo Sung-hee sent to NBC News. On this campus, those who knew him described Cho, however, as a shadow. No one fully comprehended the darkness in his mind.
I thought he was just really quiet and shy. I didn't think he was weird initially.
In hindsight, however, the warning signs were everywhere. Cho's roommates said they started to get worried when, in their words, he started stalking girls.
He said that he wanted to go up there and look her in the eyes to see how cool she was. And when he looked in her eyes, he saw promiscuity.
Two of the girls reported Cho to campus police, but refused to press charges.
Son became upset about that, and he had told me that he might as well kill himself. And so I told the cops that, and they took him away to the counseling center.
Cho was given a temporary detention order and treated by counselors at this off-campus mental health facility. A judge also found Cho, quote, an imminent danger to himself as a result of mental illness. Because of privacy rules, we don't yet know what happened as a result of the judge's ruling. We do know, however, at some point in 2005, he was treated at this hospital. Cho was released, however, and went back to classes. It's not clear whether the university was ever even told.
That's total news to me, so.
Cho's strange behavior also raised a red flag with his teachers. His poetry professor, Nikki Giovanni, even threatened to quit if Cho wasn't removed from her class. The administration offered her a security guard, which she refused. Cho was taken out of the class.
He was a very intimidating student to my other students.
English professor Lucinda Roy was so disturbed by the explicit violence in Cho's writing that she begged him to get counseling. He told her he was.
I really felt very strongly that he was suicidal, that he was so depressed, that he had a negativity about him. It was really like talking to a hole sometimes, as though the person wasn't really there.
Roy also reported Cho's behavior to campus police and the administration. Still, university officials now say there was little they could do about Cho.
The writings do not express any threatening intention or allude to any criminal activity. No criminal violations have taken place.
These violent plays Cho wrote last fall also give a window into the rage behind his blank stare. He writes of chainsaws, murder, and sexual molestation.
This is an individual who is blatantly paranoid. He was also blatantly psychotic, out of touch with reality. But that's the absolute problem with someone who's a paranoid psychotic. They are so quiet. They are so under the radar.
Danger under the radar until it erupted into unprecedented violence.
Dangerously disturbed and flying under the radar. Joining us again to talk about Cho's mental state, forensic psychologist Chris Mahondy and Daniel Gottlieb, a criminal defense attorney. He joins us from New York. Daniel, we've now seen the 2005 records for Cho, which state that he, quote, presents an imminent danger to himself as a result of mental illness. He was treated at his off-campus mental health facility, later at a hospital, but not involuntarily committed. What does it take to get someone to be held in a case like this?
Well, you have to be a lot sicker. Merely because you are a danger to yourself or somebody believes you're a danger to yourself is never going to be sufficient to have somebody civilly committed, which would, in this case, it would have been a civil commitment. Doctors have to say he has to have reached a threshold where he couldn't function in society, and that clearly wasn't the case here, or it probably should have been.
Chris, it does seem like this guy Cho sort of lived existed in a gray area, not writing anything directly violent to any particular person, not making any direct threats, or truly stalking people in a very obvious way, and yet clearly raising flags with many people he had interactions with.
Yes and no. I mean, clearly there was a lot of what we refer to as leakage, the evidence that there's an underlying violent fantasy life that is likely an antidote for his feelings of inadequacy. But yes, it is true that you have to reach a certain threshold in most states in order to be committed against your will. Nonetheless, there was a lot of information there that there was a pretty detailed violent fantasy life that should have kept him on the radar screen for a long time with a lot of attention. These are very unusual plays that he was writing, unusual poems, unusual behavior, and the fact that he was so obsessed with violence is what we see in these kinds of cases.
Daniel, Chris talks about that he should have been kept on the radar screen. On the radar screen of whom? If it's not a police matter, should the university have taken more steps, or could his parents have been notified?
Well, he was an adult at this point, so I don't think they could notify the parents even if they wanted to. The second point is, the doctors that had him in the hospital obviously didn't know of all these different things that now we're first learning about him from the different sources, from the teachers, from the other students, from his writings. Perhaps if they knew about it then, he would have been more than just on the radar screen. He would have been committed civilly, but he didn't know that, and it's virtually impossible, really, in our society for these things to come to the forefront unless something tragically like this happens.
So, Daniel, how does something like this get prevented in the future? Are there steps, should some law change? Should there be some interim group that can monitor a person like this?
Well, it seems to me the only logical, the easiest way to monitor things like this is to not make guns so easily available to individuals with problems. He didn't even have to take a test in order to get the gun in the state that he was residing in, Virginia. Virginia has one of the easiest gun qualification laws in the whole United States. You go in, you show your ID if you don't have a criminal record, and you qualify. And that's what's tragic. Perhaps if he had a test to take like you take when you get a driver's permit or a driver's license, more people wouldn't be given guns so readily as they are in the state of Virginia. And that's really sad. And that can be prevented. But
short of that, Chris, though, if you have a guy on a college campus who, a professor says is so creepy, I don't want him in my class, and his roommates are concerned that he's suicidal and have called police, and he's, pinged the radar of police at least twice for alleged stalking incidents. I mean, if you have a paranoid, delusional person on campus, is there anything a university can and or should do about it?
Well, actually, universities do things about this. That's why they have mental health centers that address these kinds of problems. But beyond that, one of the things many schools are starting to do is establish what are called threat assessment teams that are usually comprised of educators from the campus, mental health professionals, and sometimes campus-based security and law enforcement who can assemble this information and seek it out as it comes forward, because what will often happen is as what happens here. Pieces of information in one spot, with the students that are his roommates, piece of information from mental health, and what you really need are people that can oversee the assembling of this information, bring it together to see what they really do have. And that's a common practice that is becoming more common on both high school, junior high school campuses and colleges throughout America. We call it, a team approach to managing people that are of concern.